is our prayer in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, it's like everybody's up then. This is, of course, I'm like Avery. This is a bit different, without a doubt. And so I expect you all to comment, even though you're in a little picture somewhere. I'll be looking for those because I think 40 minutes is a long time. The thing that I wanted to look at this morning, and it's things that I think about constantly, things that guide our lives, you might say, day by day. And hopefully, and this is kind of a little bit of that wisdom, I guess, of a few years, you realize that you're not a lot different than so many other people. The things I think, everybody else thinks about those things too. The things I worry about, everybody else worries about those things too. So many times we do think that we're unique, that our problems are unique, that our weaknesses are unique, but they're not. They're not. So many of us suffer and go through the very same things. So the lesson this morning, I wanted to look at three things about God that does guide our life, that things that I do think about so much. One is the fear of God, how we are to feel about that and what we are to feel about that. The other thing would be the wisdom of God. And then finally, the will of God. And I wanted to combine those three and see how they kind of all come together in the scriptures that we are given to guide our lives by. I want to know, I guess, questions you might say is, what do the scriptures teach about these three things? And of course, we'll look at those first then. So we'll have some idea of, how do these three things come together for sure. And then what our response to them should be. And I guess I got to ask this question first, you might say, but what is the normal reaction that we have to fear of something? And think about that. What are you truly afraid of, and what's your reaction to that? What do you fear, and how do you respond to it? Anybody? And not that you have to answer what you fear, but how do you respond to it?
Yeah. I don't, whenever I fear something, I don't want to get around it. I fear the woods at night. I don't want to go in the woods at night. It scares me and back whenever I had cattle, whenever I knew I had to go in there and find one, it just always scared me. So I don't want to get around it. It's one of the first things.
All right, good. Well, that's kind of where I was going. Our reaction normally is to get away and to stay away. If we fear something, we realize harm can happen. There's some kind of pain involved, whether it's emotional pain, you hear those afraid to fall in love, whether it is physical pain, like in our bodies can be mutilated in some shape, form, or fashion. But for sure, we're going to feel pain of some kind when we fear something. But the fear of God is totally different. And the Bible teaches that it is a good thing, a thing to be desired. It's a profitable thing, to fear God. We'll begin, and we'll just look at a few scriptures here on this. But Genesis chapter 20 and verse 11. I want us to go to Genesis chapter 20 and verse 11. And Ivy will let you read that. You're the first on the screen. I'll just go down through how they're on my screen here.
Okay. 20:11. And Abraham said, because I thought surely the fear of God is not in this place. They will kill me on account of my wife. Okay.
Bad things happen where people don't fear God. Why are we afraid to go to the slums, you might say, of New York City or Chicago? Why would we be afraid to walk there at night? Anybody? Simple answer.
Because a lot of them doesn't fear God.
Okay, very good. They do not fear God there.
Expect consequences. You don't fear God,
Good, Sheila. Good. And it's so true, where people do not fear God, bad things happen. You are in danger, and yet the scriptures teach us to fear God. it teaches us that that's what brings good out in people, is because of the fear of God. On and on we can go about those things. But here, Abraham recognized that immediately, and we do too. I guess I want to go back to Adam and Eve, just thinking about why did they hide themselves? You remember when they ate of the forbidden fruit, and anyway, their eyes were opened, to good and evil, and they saw that they were naked, and they hid themselves. One, because didn't it say they were ashamed? Isn't that okay? They were ashamed and all, but they feared God too. This shame, and it's the same thing. You can work your way into it. When you really think about this idea of being ashamed, is because they were afraid of what he would think of them. Okay? They're afraid of his feelings toward them. They knew they weren't the same anymore. And so they had this fear of if God found out what we've done. They knew there would be repercussions of that. And again, was it a good thing that they ate the fruit? No, it was an evil thing. It was. There again, when they did not fear God, then evil takes place. And we have to really get in our minds that, yes, we're told over and over, all through the Old Testament, the New Testament, almost every biblical writer had something, that kind of corresponded to fear God. That was so important. It's number one things that we should do. I know what fear God and keep his commandments. We'll know that. We'll go ahead and read about that. But let's go then. Ruth, would you care to read 1 Samuel chapter 12, verses 24 and 25? 1 Samuel chapter 12, verses 24 and 25.
Lord, and serve him faithfully with all your heart. Consider what great things he has done for you. Yet if you persist in doing evil, both you and your king will be swept away.
Okay, according to the writer here, what will fear cause you to do?
To serve him faithfully with all your heart.
Okay, fear will cause you to serve God. And I've often wondered, when we have to be told over and over again to fear God, and Abraham knew for sure that there was no fear of God in this place, therefore he was afraid of it, then without a doubt, there are some people who do not fear God. And I've often thought, what kind of an attitude, what kind of ignorance would it take to not fear God? We've had a lot of starry nights, I guess you would say. We've had a beautiful November, without a doubt. A lot of the nights are clear. And you could see as far as the naked eye can see, very clearly. And the other night, I happened to see a shooting star, and it was only for a brief second, you might say, as it went through. And I thought, are those things really as big as they say they are? Is it really as hot as they say that it is? I wished I'd have put together a lot of figures, but scientists today believe that there are billions of galaxies. Now, with our naked eye, we can't see much past our just one galaxy. That's all we can see. And yet they believe that this thing, they say, is big beyond imagination. When they talk about billions of galaxies, how is that possible? Well, what they're saying is it's eternal. It never ends. They're just like time, space. There is no end to it as to how far it goes. And the very idea that God controls it, the very idea that God can just speak into existence a planet or a solar system, or a galaxy or billions of galaxies, and yet, I don't fear him. I'm not afraid of him. I thought it's got to be complete ignorance, a complete lack of ever giving a thought for the very ground that you walk on, or the air that you breathe, or the sun that you warm yourself by. It's the only thing that could cause someone to not fear God. And yet we're surrounded by people. They sure don't obey him. You know, many claim to fear God, but their lives are not examples of that, without a doubt. And so that's one thing that I wanted us to kind of understand here, is just how powerful, let's grasp that for a minute, God is, and the very idea that we would challenge him in any way. You know, if you don't fear him, then in essence, you're challenging him, you know, in some kind of physical fight, some type of spiritual fight. I don't know. But without a doubt, I think that's the ultimate conclusion that you have to come to. That if you do not fear him, that someday you're willing to take him on. You know, someday you're willing to say, send me to hell. See if you can. You know, if you're real or whatever, I don't know. But anyway, questions, comments, or something along that line with people you all know, people you all have come into contact with. Why do they not fear God? Have they never given it a thought? You know, anybody?
Do they know God? Do they know who he is?
Okay, good.
A lot
You
of
think
people
it's
don't.
because we haven't taught them? They've not been taught.
They don't know why they should fear him.
They had to have never given it a thought, should it? I mean, I don't know. Could you come to a conclusion of, I need to fear God without someone teaching you? You would think, wouldn't you, if they would just stop and look around and really realize, am I willing to take on, you know, the being that created all of this? I just want us so many times to get inside of their heads and think, how can we reach them? You know, how can we turn their lives again around? How can we teach them? You know, what are they thinking? What drives their rationality? You know, what how do they justify, or how can they say I'm okay? You know, type thing with a God this powerful.
I
Anyway,
had
just
someone tell me, Clint, once that they of course, you know, a lot of people say they believe in God. That doesn't mean they actually do as they're supposed to. But I had someone to tell me that was raised in the church that they just did not believe God could be as cruel to send someone to hell that was actually a good person. They said, you know, I'm not doing anything bad. I'm not, you know, I'm doing what I'm supposed to. You know, they just didn't believe that they would be sent to hell because they weren't doing anything bad. You know, they didn't feel like they had to go that extra mile. They just, you know, it's just, they just didn't think God would do that. So how do you
Very
address
good.
something like that? How do you address that?
So in the end, what they're saying is they're willing to argue with God. They're willing to debate God on
So
yeah, and what is right and what is wrong, and who deserves punishment and who deserves rewards.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
So
but yeah, very good. Yeah, that's a good thought, Sheila. It really is. But the end conclusion then of their thinking is that I'm going to debate him about it. I'm going to argue with him about it as to what I think is good and what I think people, you know, should be rewarded for. Okay, very good. Anybody else?
I think, Clint, one reason that people get to the point, perhaps, to where that they don't want to fear God, or maybe even get to the point where they don't even want to acknowledge His existence, is simply because they want to enjoy the thrills of this life. Um, you know, I said a while ago that I'm one of those that if I fear something, I'll get away from it. Others, if they fear something, they're determined they're going to conquer it. If it's skiing down a mountainside or after they ski down the mountainside, making a big jump or something like that. I'm thinking, why would you even try something like that? But in their mind, it's the biggest thrill of, and it's what life's all about is conquering and taking chances and just getting the thrill out of life. And so when you fear God, there are some things and acknowledge that He exists. There are some things that you have to say, I'm not going to take part in those things. I'm not going to risk this or that or something else. And so, in order to not have to do that, let's just say that God doesn't exist. Or let's just say that I don't really think He's that great or that it's that bad if I go against Him. Um, it, it's just not that big a deal. And therefore they do, what they do.
All right, good. Thank you. And there again, that's been a bitter lesson for me in life and so hard to learn is that there is a certain percentage of the people who are evil. It has always been, how can any human being do that to another person? I watch, a lot of historical shows, you might say, and read a lot about historical things. And the idea that they would put a rock in the bottom of a boiling pot, and their truth or lie test, you might say, is that they would force people to reach down into the bottom of that boiling pot of water and pull out, the stone. If you came out and your hand wasn't burned, then you were telling the truth. If it was, then you were telling a lie, type thing. And of course, when they pulled their arms out, the meat would just literally fall off of them, or they had boiled type thing. And it's just so far from my mind. And we can think of so many horrors, that mankind has done to other people. It's just hard for us to fathom those things, that anyone can be that cruel. But I have to accept there is a certain percentage of the people that really are that cruel. Well, the same thing with what you were saying then, Craig. Sometimes we have to accept that there are a certain percentage of the people that are that foolish, that are just foolish enough to willing to take on God. As you say, just for the thrill of it, the challenge of it. How you reach those people, I don't know. I think that's more like Paul. Let's just sweep our feet and move on to someone else, that we can work with. Okay, without that, we'll go to Psalms chapter 147. Psalms 147, and we'll read verse 11. And Dave, if you don't care if you'll get that, Psalms 147 and verse 11.
We're getting there. Hang on a second. Went right by it. Psalms 131.
Psalm 147 and verse 11.
Verse 11. All the way to the end. 147, verse 11. The Lord favors those who fear him, those who wait for his loving kindness.
Okay. Here again, we fear our parents. We should, as children. We know that they love us. We know that their entire purpose of anything is for our benefit, is for our good. We learn those things. And from our parents, and back again to the society we live in, this may be a lot of the very problem. They didn't learn proper fear of God from their parents. They didn't learn to fear, you might say, being disciplined and all is for your benefit. It's for your good. I've given you guidelines. I've given you a path to follow. And it's because it's the good path. It's the safe path. Not only will it lead to salvation, but it'll lead to a better life, to a more fulfilling life. On and on we can go with these things about the proper kind of fear we should have. Okay, God takes pleasure in. And how did your version? What did yours say, Dave? The King James says, "The Lord taketh pleasure in them that fear Him." Yours said,
Favors those.
He favors those. Okay. Yes. There we go again. It's the idea that there's going to be a reward, a good reward, a pleasant reward. He said, and in those that fear Him and that hope in His mercy. I think it's the way the King James puts it. We just got to realize that to fear God is something I try to do every day, something I want to do, something I desire to do, something that He wants me to do, something He desires me to do, and it's good. It will lead to good. We'll go to 145 verses 17 through 20. Sheila, if you don't care right there, it'll probably be the same opening.
Clint, I think David has a.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah, the fear of God keeps him at the forefront, puts him first.
Then you can be guided. Very good. That should be our life. I mean, our life's ambition is to fear Him and put Him first. Never give no thoughts for anything else.
Clint, I think David's exactly right on that. And I go back to the question that Sheila asked, from the guy that said he didn't think that God could just punish a good person. One of the things that comes to my mind first is the old prophet and the new prophet. The young prophet in the Old Testament, he was going about his job doing what God had told him. The old prophet came to him and lied and told him something different. The young prophet messed up when he didn't fear God enough to put God's word in front of what a man was telling him.
Very good.
Yes. What God had told him, he would have been saved. He would have still lived. And that's happening today. We have God's word in front of us. We can go to the good book, look and see exactly what we need to do. We can't take a man's opinion because we'll get lied to sometimes. So we always got to fear God first, keep His word first, and go to His word to decide what's right and what's wrong.
Very good. All right. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Okay, Sheila, then would you read Psalms 145, verses 17 through 20?
145?
17 through 20.
17 through 20. Okay. The Lord is righteous in all His ways and faithful in all He does. The Lord is near to all who call on Him, to all who call on Him in truth. He fulfills the desires of those who fear Him. He hears their cry and saves them. The Lord watches over all who love Him, but all the wicked He will destroy.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 1 and verse 7. Eddie, would you care to read that? Proverbs 1 and verse 7.
Proverbs 1:7. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction.
Okay. Here's another thing that in my youth, I'm sure, and I would like to think things have changed now, but in my youth, I was not a wise man. There's just no doubt about it. It has been said, and I always loved this, how do you separate knowledge, which is something I sought after, the knowledge that I wanted to have, not the knowledge that the school system wanted me to have, but the knowledge I wanted to have. But knowledge is knowing what to say. Wisdom is knowing whether or not to say it. I suffered tremendously most of my life from a lack of wisdom. I've always hated making mistakes. I always hated being wrong. It was something that it just drove me. I did not want to be wrong. And I'm assuming most people are that way. But I have been proven to be wrong so many times that I have been humbled a lot in life and have accepted the fact that I'm wrong. a lot of times. It's not something I want to be. It's not something I desire to be or something I work towards, but I am wrong a lot of times. And therefore, when James told us to pray for wisdom, and God will give it to you freely, I've used that prayer so many times, that I want wisdom. It's something, that I desire, something that I don't feel like I have. But as time has gone by, we do become a little more wiser, whether, we want to or not. Well, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Okay. But it said fools despise wisdom and instruction. So, the fool has said in his heart, well, there is no God. I think of that. So we know we're not fools because we believe in God. That's for sure. We fear God. So that's the beginning of getting knowledge and wisdom. We take off from there. Let's go to James chapter 3, verses 13 through 18. James 3, 13 through 18. And so these are so many things, if you feel like you haven't been given a lot of talents, like the 10 talent man and the 2 talent man and the 1 talent man, these are things that we can acquire, through our lives and through study and through striving to live like God would have us to live. First, we fear him. Then, that's the beginning of knowledge. Then we get wisdom. But when we go to James chapter 3, 3 through 5, Eric, would you care to read that?
Behold, we put bits in the horses' mouths that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. Behold also the ships, which, though they be so great and are driven of fierce winds, yet they are turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth. Even so the tongue a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth.
Well, that's a very good scripture, but that's not the one. My fault. I gave you the wrong one. James 3, 13 through 18. I'm sorry, James 3, 13 through 18.
Okay. Who is a wise man and endureth with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. But if ye have bitter envyings and strife in your heart, and glory not, and lie not against the truth, this wisdom descendeth not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish. For there where envyings and strife there is confusion and every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, easy to be entreated, full of mercy, good fruits, without partiality, and without hypocrisy. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace.
Okay, thank you. All right, the wisdom from above, and that's the wisdom we're seeking. And let's go again, before we get into that, think about wise men. All right, we're supposed to fear God. That's a wise thing to do. Well, do you fear wise men? Has anybody ever thought about it? When somebody is smarter than I am, I really get on edge, you might say, because my experience has been that only a godly man is truly a wise man. There are a lot of smart people in this world. Oh, me, there are a lot of smart people, without a doubt. But there's not many wise people, and there is so much difference between being smart, knowing a lot of things, because most of the time they only know a certain field, you might say. I never will forget watching the movie The Last Samurai, but anyway, he talked about these people when they woke up in the morning, their entire day was dedicated to perfecting this one thing. Whatever they did that day, they did it with all their might, you might say, but it was dedicated to perfecting that one thing. Well, so many people we meet today, that's pretty much what they've spent their lives in, because we are a nation that now you can't just be jack of all trades and master of none. You're going to have to be master of one trade. That seems to be the way it's got to go now. All the corn is produced in these states. All the milk is produced in these states. We can go on and on with our manufacturing. The cars are made in this factory, you might say. You specialize in this one thing. And that's the way our economy, you might say, is geared toward. The entire world is almost geared toward that thing. You don't just do a whole lot of little things and become very successful in life. So therefore, we have a lot of people who specialize, in one thing. And so they seem to be very smart in that one thing. And that's fine. That's good. But I'm not going to get in their field, you might say, and pretend to know anything or to pretend to be able to live in their field of specialization, you might say. But that's not a wise person. That's not the wisdom that comes from God. And back again, then we can be impressed with a lot of people, but we don't need to be impressed to the point of, I'm going to believe anything they say. That is a smart man. I've gotten caught like that in my youth, you might say, before, in believing in someone because they seem to be really intelligent and they seem to be smart, but I didn't know they're not wise. The wisdom that comes from God is first, what does it say? Pure. Well, these people probably weren't pure. Most of the time, someone who is smarter than others, they become con men, you might say. They'll use that intelligence or whatever for their own gain. In a way, they'll always, it just seems to be, maybe it's something that Satan tempts them with. Maybe it's something that is just a weakness. They get this arrogance. And that's another thing God despises and will not go along with godly wisdom. But they want to manipulate them to their own advantage, this intelligence that they have. So we have to learn immediately that that's not from God. They're not pure. What is it? The next thing is peaceable and gentle. We think about that's a wise person. When I meet something or someone who is peaceable and gentle, there you go again. Start easily to be entreated. Somebody give a definition for that. Easily to be entreated. A person who's easily entreated, to be entreated?
You're not afraid to go and ask them for anything or to ask them for advice or their opinion about something because they're not going to belittle you. That they're not going to lie to you, to use you in any way, to try to make a fool out of you. They're going to answer one way or the other, and if they don't know, they'll say, "I don't know." So you're not afraid to go to them and ask them for anything, really.
All right, good. Thank you so much. Yes, that was exactly what I was looking for. You feel comfortable around these people. If this is wisdom from God, they love you. And guess what? They probably have your best interest at heart. They really do. They're not trying to con you because they know more than you do. They're not trying to use their knowledge, to take advantage of you. Someone who is pure and peaceable and gentle and easily to be entreated, they have your best interest at heart. They truly do. It says they're full of mercy and good fruits. Think about that. So many people that we'll come into contact with today, and people therefore, and the reason I'm wanting us to get inside their minds is that we have to teach these people. That is our responsibility. That's our duty to teach them the gospel. And so we want to wonder, why do they feel this way? It says when they're full of mercy and good fruits, then they're not this arrogant. And I hear so many, I pulled myself up with my own bootstraps. I did this myself. I started out with nothing and this is what I've got. You do hear so many testimonies, you might say, of how I became so successful. This is why I'm so smart. This is why I did it all myself. And they don't have compassion, you might say, for those who don't have these things that they have, or those who don't have this understanding that they believe they have, of any certain subject. So we know, again, it's so easy to pick it out if you'll just read the scriptures and understand. I could have gained wisdom so many years earlier, or a little bit. Not that I'm wise, but I could have progressed some if I had just really tried to understand these things that God said. And there you go again. The last two, it says, without partiality and without hypocrisy. We understand, boy, do we live in a hypocritical society today. Everybody's throwing rocks out of glass houses, as they say. That is such a good analogy, you might say, of the society that we live in. And, probably has repeated itself down through the centuries. Without a doubt, Don Nims, is one of his favorite things is always, if we don't study history, that old saying, we're doomed to repeat it. It is so true. There comes points in times, possibly after wars, when society will return to morality. They'll return to a compassionate, loving, caring society. And then success seems to head us in a different direction again. We go back to this earthly wisdom that the James is trying to teach us about. And that seems to be where we're at now. We've cycled back around again, to a society that is full of hypocrisy, without a doubt. There are very few people that won't do like Sheila was talking about, try to justify their actions, try to justify, their reason for not obeying God, their reason for not serving him and wanting to be a part of the church and not wanting to work for him. And so those are the people we've got to reason with and to understand that even so, though they may be super intelligent, they may seem to be super smart, they may seem to be smarter than we are, don't be intimidated by them. It's not godly wisdom. And if you will follow these things that God has laid out for us, you will be able to teach them. Even though they are more intelligent than you, you will be able to convince a lot of people the way of God and the gospel. Anybody, questions, comments on that?
Clint,
Yes.
hey, Clint,
Yes.
on the thought that there is no God, I don't think I've ever met but one man that denied there was a God boldly. And during the conversation, a lady that was in there with me made a comment that I've never forgot. She said, if there is no God, when we come to the end of life, it don't make any difference. But if there is, it makes all the difference. And it's something I think, all of us need to think about. If there's no God, it doesn't make any difference what you believe. But if there is, it all hinges on it, It's just something to think about. And of course, I think all of us believe there is, and we have his word like you're talking about today. We can all study and know it and know what to do. But if there is none, it don't make any difference.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Then I want us to go to Matthew chapter 6, verses 8 through 10. Matthew 6, 8 through 10. Bella, would you want to read?
Matthew what?
6, 8 through 10.
Chapter what?
Matthew chapter 6, verses 8 through 10.
8 through 10. Okay. Be not therefore like unto them, for your Father knoweth what things ye have need of before ye ask him. Am I reading the right verse?
Yes, yes.
Okay. After this
And go
manner,
ahead.
therefore,
I'm sorry.
Therefore-
Yes, go ahead and read 9 and 10.
therefore ye pray the Lord's Prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Okay, good. Thank you. And here's where I wanted, we're about out of time, but I wanted us to touch on the will of God. And it's because we want answers. We need answers. You know, we're looking for answers today for so many things. And here's where, when I study the fear of God, I know he's going to take care of me. If I fear God, then I'm going to get wisdom. I'm going to get knowledge. And from this, I know that he's going to take care of us. If we do the will of him, you know, he will do that. Okay. When we come down and we see the wisdom of God, and like I was talking about those galaxies, realize it's beyond my understanding, you know, and I had some verses that kind of corresponded to those things for us to understand it. God is so much more. Then there's no need me even thinking about it. You know, I can't even comprehend it. So I don't worry about that. Now we get to the will of God, and Jesus is saying himself to pray that the will of God be done. All right. In the end, every one of our prayers should say that. Not because, you know, this is the ideal prayer to pray in this dispensation, you know, because of the part of thy kingdom come, we realize it's already come in so many ways. But this idea of thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven, then I fall into a trap, you might say, of he's going to take care of me. He knows way more than me. You know, it's beyond my thinking. There's no even trying, and his will is going to be done. Then I almost want to just go through this life just carefree. I travel, I guess, through this world without a care in this world. You know, we're told to be anxious for nothing. And I have to remember, no, I have work to do here. There are things that I do that is pleasing to God. I can't just be like, and this is where I do the comparisons many times, a 2-year-old, you might say, where they worry about nothing, they think about nothing, you know, they fear nothing but their parents. They know their parents are going to take care of them. And maybe we should be more that way. But anyway, comments or questions on how do you put that together? The idea that I need to work for God. I need to worry about people's lost souls. I need to, whatsoever my hands finds to do it with all my might. Versus this attitude of, I'm not worried about nothing. I don't care about nothing because I have no control over anything. God is taking care of it all. You know, anybody, comments, questions to wind the class up?
If you want to go with that illustration, Clint, of the 2-year-old, even the 2-year-old, though he may not have anything to worry about or anything, the parents are beginning to expect something from him, and they're trying to train him so that if it's playing with his sister and he wants to take the toy away, no, you need to learn how to share. If it's eating his food, no, you don't throw the food on the floor. You eat your food. You know, you don't waste it, and on you can go about that. So there are some things that parents expect, even of a 2-year-old. Well, the same thing is true of us with God. Yes, his parents will take care of him. God will take care of us. But as we grow in his grace, God expects us to demonstrate our faith and to mature in the things that he blesses us with. to use them wisely, and especially in helping others.
All right, good. Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you all so much. We'll proceed to the worship service shortly then.